In Flip the Switch, Stories of Change, you meet individuals that contribute to a big vision, the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. It has the ambitious goal to transform our world and create a sustainable future for all. For more info about the podcast, visit we-do-change.org/podcast.
September 2018 was the changing point where I decided to take actions towards my passion. It was while I was proceeding my master's thesis in Germany in water resources engineering and management. I was writing a master thesis in a topic that made sense but didn't feel right. One of those days, I was talking to my friend. She was already in Sudan, my country. She mentioned something about having a gas crisis, and people were standing in lines for hours just to have gas for their cooking purposes and to use at home. So, as a water engineer, I didn't know that I had the capacity to create a solution for that, but I felt like this is the right thing to do. I was all in the middle of my writing in the first thesis, but I decided I don't want to do this anymore, and I stopped it and I started researching ways of using my knowledge to solve the gas crisis. And I started a thesis about biogas energy potential from waste and wastewater in Sudan. The reason I wanted to create a change in my country is because my country is one of the richest in natural resources in the world. We have abundant water resources, freshwater resources, groundwater as well as surface water. We have the River Nile and we have Bara groundwater basin. In addition to that, we have the most fertile soil in the world. We also have biodiversity and we have animal resources. On the other hand, Sudan had all the reasons to become a leading nation, yet corruption was enforced and many challenges were being imposed to the region. I also lived in the United Arab Emirates, where I witnessed a desert become one of the leading countries in infrastructure. So I knew that there was something that can be done to transform a nation. My motivation has always been my country, but what really made me believe that I can make a change was the fact that while I was doing my thesis, people of Sudan revolted and managed to change a dictator government of 30 years, and they managed to make this change only with peaceful revolutions. And that time I knew that my research can lead to fruits. So it was a long process for me to actually take my passion into action, because I always had many ideas to make a change. I always had so many talks with leaders, so many talks with people who made changes, but I didn't know how to take it forward. It was that moment when I was speaking to my friend where I realized that, okay, this is speaking to me and I have to make a change. And I have the power to make that change. So why not? I do consider myself a change maker because I was able to take actions towards what I felt was wrong. I was able to translate the need that my country had into a solution, and I was able to inspire others to make a change. And in the process, of course, collaborating with others is important, because others, in the way of achieving all this, I always had so many enablers, and I wouldn't be able to do what I did without them. I had so many support from either if it was during my studies or people who I meet in the way who actually believe that this change is possible to happen. Uh, I believe that collaborating with others make it easier to achieve the goal, either if it was by resources or by giving advices or by introducing me to other people who can actually help. So in the way, I had so many enablers that made this possible. So I definitely think that collaboration is the way to sustainability, because sustainability itself is co-creation, is multidisciplinary work. So working with others taught me a lot of things, develop and reach the goals easier. So if I have to say what can I gain from a community or a network, by being part of a community, I get to take my initiative forward faster than if I'm alone. Because being there itself means I'm holding a certain set of standards and beliefs, which creates a sense of trust between people. This trust leads to sharing the correct knowledge and opportunity that can make it easier for me to reach my goal. So for me, the SDGs that I believe is most like relevant or most important is SDG number 4, quality education. Because I believe that if if we have quality education, we are able to achieve all the SDGs. And when I say education, I don't mean going to school. For me, I mean gaining the correct knowledge that can lead you to solve your local problems and sustain in this world. The knowledge to utilize your resources to make food, water access, and proper sanitation. The knowledge about the importance of coexistence and biodiversity. The knowledge about equalities and gender rights and how to achieve them and benefit from them. For me, this is the true education, and this is what we need. I do believe that if I had the right knowledge in the right time, I would have been able to create a different impact. I discovered myself after becoming an adult, and it was different. It was small things that if I knew earlier, I would have been able to create small changes that would have made a big impact. And that is why I relate so much to this. I am currently working towards quality education by I co-founded a startup to enable communities to lead their own transformation towards sustainability. And the way we enable communities is by capacity building and educating them about how to manage their own resources to sustain socially, economically, and environmentally, to create local solutions from local resources and create and these solutions for water access, sustainable sanitation, waste management, and from these solutions they can also sustain economically, how to turn these resources into a sustainable source of income. We did many initiatives. One of them was waste management for street scavengers, where we educate them about the value of what is called waste and how they can turn it into a source of living by collecting, recycling plastic or reusing metal or reusing wood waste. These are all ways to create something useful out of what is called waste. So, if I have to talk about my successes and failures, I would say that the biggest achievement that I have done so far is having the courage to start my own company and actively working with different stakeholders to create the change I always envisioned from the beginning. At the pandemic, I managed to work for the Ministry of Social Development of Sudan to create human-centered solutions for water supply as a response to COVID-19. I worked remotely with a team of young professionals, all volunteering passionately to create a change. We didn't only manage to create designs and prototypes, but also teach those young professionals about design thinking and how they can reach their creative abilities. We also managed to design and raise funds for that project that I told you before about street scavengers and how we can help them create a source of living from what is so-called waste. And this is what I consider one of my biggest achievements, that I managed to gather the relevant stakeholders in order to create such a change. How they get there is, as I said before, I always had enablers in the way. I had a vision in the beginning, and then there was an opportunity to apply for one of the programs for youth, which was called Young Water Fellowship, to kickstart my idea, which was only a research at the time, the research of biogas energy potential from waste, which turned into that I wanted to enable others to use their resources. Turn to a business model where I managed to learn from coaches and mentors how to turn the passion into reality. I was chosen as one of 10 others in East Africa region to kickstart my business. In the way, I also participated in many co-creation journeys where my idea was recognized as one of the best. But to take it further, I had to work together with other passionate startups. So I do believe that to get there, to get where I wanted to get, it was a big part of it was the enablers that I got into the way, and also the opportunities that my enablers put in the way. If I have to say about my failures, I usually don't like to use the word failure, but I do believe that some things didn't work as planned. Our initiative pretty much depends on people coexisting and trying to develop something together, and COVID restrictions was not really helpful with that. Additionally, I would say that in many times I was myself enemy, where I wanted things to be so perfect that like I got stuck in a loop where I couldn't just try for the sake of trying, and I was just trying to master the plan instead of going to the action. Also, one of the things that I would say I failed in is to manage my expectations. Um, I fell for the pressure. As a startup, I got recognized so much for the in the beginning, but then when the process of actually turning your passion into actions, this is the hard part. And I got stuck into that glory that, okay, my idea was recognized, I got seed funding, I got everything, but then I have to turn it into action. And then I'm like, no, there's a lot of on stake. I have to make it perfect. I have to perfect it. And I fell into that pressure and I felt like I was stuck in a loop. And sometimes where this was one of my biggest mistakes. As the project manager, I felt so much pressure that one time that influenced the team, my team around me. They were working with so much passion, but what I did that time, that the way I spoke was not the way that I'm used to with myself, and I spoke to them in a way I kind of reflected my pressure on them, which is something that a leader should not do often, to take it out on the team. Instead, I had to, manage my pressure on my own. So I felt like that affected the performance of the team. And this is something I wouldn't like I learned a lot from, definitely. And also for me as a startup, it wasn't easy for me uh, to identify what I need to learn, because I just got into from being someone who is environmental enthusiast and someone who wants to make a change to someone who actually has to take actions to make that change, and also doing that in a sustainable way and in a way that is it has to be like viable as a business, or or NGO, but something that to sustain itself. So it wasn't easy for me to identify where to start or what are the knowledge that I need. And also because as a startup, it's not easy to share the weaknesses and to share that you're not like doing as great as people think you are, and it's not easy to share your vulnerabilities. It wasn't easy for me to also learn from the hardships of other startups. So that's why I just felt like this was something that raised the pressure on me, and the feeling that you're a failure because you are taking so much time to achieve something that looked so easy on paper, but it's actually not as easy in reality. And I think realizing this now would have made me change a lot of things. What are the key learnings from this? I would say one of the key learnings is always take advantage of the opportunities that comes in the way, whether if it was networking events, a person can be an opportunity, by the way, a training session, a grant, or if someone spoke to you, to your soul, then it's part of your journey. Like anything that speaks to my soul, I should have taken it as part of my journey and not just look the other way. And also I should always, all these opportunities, I should always take them as give them the time and energy to explore them. I learned to only listen to my heart and take chances and aim for higher. And to make a change, it only needs courage and the will to start that change. The other things comes in the way. I also learned that every step of the journey is a learning opportunity, and I should always be mindful of my journey and what I'm learning in it. I also learned that sometimes I could be my own enemy, like I said before, by delaying something just because I think it's not good enough, or maybe it's not gonna work, even though it might work. And if it didn't, it's still an opportunity to learn. Other key learning that as a startup, you get stuck with the glory and then you forget about the hardships of turning that passion into action. And also, you get stuck on what would people say, what people think, because you know, in the beginning of being a startup or taking your own business, it's out of a lot of people's comfort zone. So people would not give you the, yeah, you're gonna work, what, all those things. No, they're gonna be just waiting for you to fail. Maybe I was so worried about that as well, together with me being worried about creating the sustainable change. I was also worried about what, no, I have to not fail because people are really expecting me to win. I mean, like, no, it doesn't work this way. I should just work for goal the goal of creating sustainable change for people. And also knowing one of the key learning is making change is not easy. Making a social sustainable change is a long process. So I needed to be mindful of that in the beginning. It's not just a business model canvas. It is more than that. It is people there. I had to be mindful of that. That is one of the key learnings. What would I do differently is I would have tried different things without being stuck at perfecting the plan. What advice would I give? I would say not just because you had a glory of recognition of your idea doesn't mean that you're ready and you have to succeed immediately. If it didn't work, at least you learned something and you will keep learning. Making a change takes time. What is the best advice someone given me is that don't try to be like anyone, just be the best version of yourself. And this is something I would never forget, and it literally changed my life. My goals in the future, personally and in my work, is to become a global sustainability leader to support societies and nations in their journey to sustainability. And especially that I want to make it from available resources. I want to create a global change. I want to be able to inspire others to take the lead and start the small change that they can. I want to be a go-to person when it comes to sustainability. I want to develop my career that much. So if I have to recommend anyone where should they start to make a switch in their life, I recommend that you act upon your passion, but also take your time into doing that. Always learn and develop. Take the opportunities and use them wisely. And don't get stuck into perfection. Because whatever idea that we have, that you have as a change maker, that idea is unique and that idea is yours and it is already perfect. So I think it's really important to work in SDGs and Agenda 2030 because the globe is already in a state of emergency. And already I lived in three different regions that make me realize that there's a lot to be changed and the change is really possible. And we can collectively do it together. I think of SDGs that they are common sense of how life should be. It's a balance. So apart from quality education, because I believe that quality education leads to achieving other SDGs, SDG number 6, which is clean water and sanitation. It is for me, it's really important to have clean water and sanitation. Everything surrounds around water. Also, gender equality. I always have gender awareness in all my capacity building programs. Of course, no poverty. Sustainability should lead to no poverty, and this should come from decent work and economic growth. For me, to be honest, all 17 goals are equally important, but I am working towards what I just mentioned. And I really do believe that all 17 are included in what I'm doing right now and what I did in my startup. So, so it's really hard to tell one over the other because they really complement each other. But I would say what inspired me to all of them is water, clean water and sanitation, and then quality education became the top of my priorities. So I wish for the future regarding the SDGs, an agenda of 2030 is that each and every person takes initiative, no matter how small it is, to make a change. If we all did this, I believe that we can reach that. And I wish that policymakers take the responsibility to take a real action towards challenged countries instead of making shallow changes. So I believe that the switch we need to flip to reach sustainability is that we globally need to take more responsibility towards Africa and other challenged countries, as we all know that they have the resources to grow and economically sustain. Instead of treating them like a burden, we have to know that these countries have imposed corruption and endless blame from a global community. So instead of blaming them and blaming what is happening, we should just take responsibility and remember the history and create the change we want to see. Create the justice, just like goal 16 of the SDGs: peace and justice and strong institutions. And also, of course, partnership for the goal. I would say that I wish that all of us collectively, globally work together and take responsibility towards all SDGs and not only think about ourselves or our country or our region, because this is a global issue. And what happens in those challenged countries directly influences how the globe achieves those goals. My name is Tawheed Bashar. I am Sudanese and I'm currently working and living in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, as a business development lead in the Green Building Council. My contribution is the SDG for quality education, and it's your turn now. I challenge you to do something good in relation to quality education in the next 7 days. Share the outcome with me via my email, Twitter, or LinkedIn. More info on wedochange.org/podcast. I would love to hear about it. Thank you.
Join us again next time for another story of Flip the Switch, Stories of Change, brought to you by the GLAC community. For more info, visit we-do-change.org/podcast. Flip the switch and make a difference.